Hi, everybody. Today is Thursday, August 17th, 2023. My name is Mike Zornick, and today I'm going to do a bit of an ad hoc project journal type thing. Um, I want to talk a little bit about Ash Framework, which is for Elixir, and my thoughts about it and my early experiments with it and how it's gone. So before that, I'll go into a little bit of context. So right now, I am in kind of a pre-code research phase for a new project that I want to work on. So I'm interested in serving the community of people who are building courses online, particularly targeted at programmers and technically minded folk. And right now, I'm kind of just in research mode. So I've got this blog that I started up called Core Streamers, and it's just kind of a research notebook of sorts. I'm posting some blog entries about, hopefully things that are interesting to that kind of audience, and just some of my general observations about course design and things of that nature. And as that's going on, I'm also doing a lot of tech investigation of trying to figure out what I want to do. So specifically, I'm interested in building open source courseware. I don't really know what it looks like yet, but that's kind of the general mindset. And then to implement that, what my plan is to do Svelte and Svelte Kit on the front end, and Elixir and GraphQL on the back end. And I'll have more to say about Svelte and my decision to kind of look into that over, say, LiveView, which I have a lot of personal experience with over the last couple of years, in a different video. Today, I want to talk a little bit more specifically about GraphQL and Ash and those type of things. So first off, I'll say, so what is Ash? So Ash is a framework for Elixir that basically provides the tooling so you can define the nouns and verbs of your system. And so they use the term resource, basically, where you basically describe the resource, the resources you have and how they work. And then once you have that, you basically can use Ash to, synthesize, code behaviors that you need. And so, it starts off with the simple things of just persistence. So can you save it to a Postgres database or Amnesia or ETS or whatever, or CSV if you're doing some kind of export thing. But then it gets more complex. So you can basically say here are my resources. Let me synthesize a GraphQL experience for these resources, or a JSON API. And that's one of the things that I'm specifically interested in, because I've been on projects before where we've done graph. And when we had to introduce a new noun into the system, it was a lot of work. It was you had to add the noun in lots of different places. You ended up repeating yourself a lot because you kind of described the fields in in your ectoschema, and then you'd have to define them again when you're defining your stuff in Absinthe. And so I'm very interested in the idea of simplifying this expression of the business domain. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. So Ash has tooling for authentication as well as authorization. So there's tools for role-based access. There's a admin UI you can provide. So if you've built your resources out, you want to provide a little admin area for basically administrators of the system to kind of do special things that aren't front end, client facing. You can do that. There's multi-tenancy support, which I'm not really looking to do that right now, but that's a whole nother thing. That's a lot of work I've done before in certain Elixir projects. So, yeah, and then you can extend it with your own stuff. And Ash itself is continuing to expand, day by day. So that's basically what Ash is. I can show you a little bit about what the code looks like. So on the front page here, and I'll show you some personal code here that I have later, but basically it starts off where you define a resource. And so you start off, and I'll make this a little bit bigger. So you start off and you say this is my, post, and you say use Ash resource, and that'll pull in like all the default like kind of behavior you need. And then what you end up doing is you start adding sections. So you'll see like attributes do, actions do. This is where you define, the fields, the properties of your resource that make it, interesting. And then the actions is where you just, design the verbs that you can do upon these things. And it starts off with like very basic, create, read, update, delete, and you can get those actions for free, but then you can be more explicit and create actions on your own. And then as you want to add other behaviors, so like in the case of the persistence, you can say, this is my data layer, like my data layer is Postgres. Then you give it the very basic information that says this is the table, this is the repo, and then like it'll just kind of work, which is really cool. Then there's some examples of here how you can programmatically, once you have that stuff in place, how you can create an entity of that resource, execute your custom action, execute all of the kind of built-in like filters and sorting and pagination. And those are the types of things, honestly, where like I feel like I'll get the most out of Ash. When you use like a generator from a Phoenix project that'll generate like a context, like you'll get some very basic like create, list, destroy type things, but like very soon in a mature app you'll start to have these needs of like filtering, sorting, pagination, role-based access, and then and it's not to say you can't like handcraft solutions to solve those. I mean, Elixir is totally, you can totally do that. It's just it's a lot of work. And it's particularly like not business unique, like these are not the problems that your business is set up for. Like you're supposed to be solving those problems. And so you want to spend your time working on like the unique solutions, not the mundane drudgery. And that like the filtering, sorting, pagination stuff, like that's been done. Nobody needs to re-implement a paginator. And so anyway, that's part of the reason why I'm kind of excited about Ash. So this is all on the front page of Ash itself. And so to give you a little bit about like what I've been doing, so I went through the Ash documentation. So the Ash has got documentation, it's got getting started, and I went through getting started with Postgres, and then eventually, getting started with GraphQL. And I started to work on a small little app. And so the domain of the tutorial is basically a help desk. So the resources are like a ticket and a representative. And what I've done is like I've built two repos. I have my help desk Elixir API repo, and then I have my help desk Svelte repo. And today I'm just going to be talking about the Elixir API, but they're both up there if you're interested. And yeah, and so like I want to show you a little bit about what this looks like. So here's my ticket. So the help desk has two resources. It has a ticket and a representative. The ticket starts with some basic attributes. So it's got a primary UUID. It's got a subject, which is a string. It is not allowed to be nil. It also has a status, which is an atom, and it's a constraint of. So it's basically like kind of like an enum type. It's got a default, and then it too cannot be nil. Those are the attributes. Then I've got my actions, which for the most part I just pull in the defaults. I did customize the read action, so that way I could provide some pagination options, which is mandatory for the kind of like GraphQL pagination that I'm doing. And that works great. Like that's enough to like run the app and run IEX and create a bunch of entities and have them be saved to the database and all that fun stuff. There's the Postgres stuff. So like once at the top, like I say, this is my data layer. I had it Postgres, and then I add the migrations. And this actually is one thing you probably notice if you get started with the tutorial is that Ash has a kind of custom way of doing the migrations. Like custom is actually probably the wrong word. So at the end of the day, like these migrations will look like pretty normal ecto migrations. Like there's nothing terribly sexy. It's just that these are generated for you. And so the idea, what the idea is basically like you will go into your code and you will edit your resource, your DSL, and you will add attributes and you will delete attributes. And then you'll run a mix command. And what'll happen is that Ash is going to look at these like snapshots they have of, you know, the attributes. And these are all generated. So like these aren't things you edit. It will use those snapshots to inform it on what the next migration needs to be. And so you end up committing both the migrations themselves and the snapshots. And there's a little bit of like concern about like the order of operations of snapshots and generated migrations, which you have to be a little bit more mindful of with that style. I don't know if I really love that or not. I mean, there's some benefits to it in that like migrations will have a general consistency and they are still like ecto migrations. So if you want to go in here and customize things, like you can. It's just you have to be mindful of like the Ash process and stuff. And I don't know, maybe there's some people who are using Ash persistence, you know, Postgres, and they are writing all their own migrations by hand. I mean, that seems like an option as well. Yeah, so that's the ticket. And so what happens is you come in here and you define your resource, your attributes and your actions and your persistence with Postgres. And then you can add extensions. So I added like Ash GraphQL, and then at the very bottom of this also has a relationship. So this entity is related to the representative. You add your declaration of your graph. And so you can start really simple with just saying like, hey, this is the type. These are the queries I want to offer. These are the mutations I want to offer. And then, you know, without any other work, you basically get a very like rich GraphQL schema. So I'll open this up here so you can see like you get in the case of the mutations, you get like, you know, create ticket, where it, you know, it accepts a create ticket input, which, you know, of course is like the details of it. You get update tickets, destroy tickets. You can get a get ticket for, you know, pure access. And then you can get the list tickets. And in my case, for list ticket, I have included the relay true option. And so I also, basically, it will shape this GraphQL endpoint so that it's got the appropriate relay style edges and nodes. Relay is, so like in the world of GraphQL, there's like two big camps, Apollo and Relay. Relay is like a more of a React style tool. Basically, it's not a specification, but it's more of this like a set of like expectations that like a graph is shaped a certain way. And so for pagination concerns, they use this concept of like edges and nodes. And yeah, and so like that's opt-in if you don't use it. So like this list tickets has the relay option, and so you can see it's got edges and page info. The list representatives I've kept as like normal, and so you can see that this one is just out of the box. It's just all of them. There are no pagination options. It still has filtering and sorting, which is great. So you can filter a representative by like their name. You can say like name equals something, or name is nil. Those types of things all work. Yeah, and so like what I did was I started up this app and started building out the graph, you know, for it, and pretty much just using the default like playground to kind of get some experience with it. So I can, you know, create tickets, and I can get tickets, and I can list tickets as expected. The other thing I'll share is the community. So like Ash has a Discord server where you can kind of come in and, you know, just talk about the project or project you're working on. And then there's a specific support forum where you can come in and ask questions about Ash and try to learn. My experience is that, they're very supportive, and Zach's been very, timely with like his answers and even his, bug fixes as things come on. And yeah, and that works really well. And this Discord like support forum is actually, they do a little bit of magic to make sure that the Discord support posts end up within the website, which is good because it probably helps a lot of the search engine foo of people kind of getting their questions answered. But yeah, so let me just look at my notes here, see what else I wanted to mention in this rambling journal. All right, so that's Ash. I'm really interested in it because I feel like it will help me experiment with like web ideas faster, and will help me automate a lot of the mundaneness of like very boring things like pagination and sorting, and it'll do it in a consistent way across all my nouns. And the other thing I have in my notes here too is like, as I collaborate with somebody and somebody comes into the code base and they want to like contribute, if I had handcrafted all of my own pagination or something, they would have to kind of come into the project and learn how I did it. And my hope is that like, not that Ash is like it's not like super well known in the Elixir community. People are aware of it, but not everybody's using it. But like, still, like, there's a benefit to the fact that like somebody can come in, and then if they have questions about like how I do pagination, they can come like to the Ash website. They can look at how it's built. They can see documentations explaining like how to use it. They can go to the forums. Like, there's more knowledge in the world about the inner workings of my system, and it's not just like my system. That like, there's a trade-off there. Like, some projects, people like to really have a handcrafted craftsmanship like approach to their code, and I've definitely fallen into that camp on certain projects. Thinking ahead to like this next project that I want to work on, like, I'm really interested in solving the needs of my audience, and if I can automate some of the boring code things, I'd like to do that. That's why that's one of the reasons I'm excited about Ash. So in my notes, what do I worry about with Ash? So this is not the first project that tries to take on the concept of like defining resources and building off of that style. There's definitely some concerns with having a framework like this. Like, if you choose to build on top of this and the framework goes stagnant and is not updated, like, the Elixir, new version of Elixir comes out, new version of Phoenix comes out, like, if it's dilly-dallying with its maintenance, like, that would be a problem. I don't see that with Ash. Like, I see active development. I see Ash being commercially supported, basically to the point where like basically Zach is employed in part to maintain the framework, which is very, very helpful as a consumer of the framework to add confidence. It's not like perfect. Like, if you go to the Ash project and you look for insights into like the pulse of the project, like over the last month, like you see Zach, obviously the main contributor, and you see some other contributors, but there's not like a team of people. It is, a lot of this is on Zach's shoulders, which is a little unfortunate, a little scary, but I'm not letting that detract me at the moment. And if I can, like, if I get into it and I'm more comfortable with it, like, maybe I could contribute, personally to that and make the world I want to see. But that's definitely a concern. The other kind of like concern is like, how much of this can you override and customize when you need to? So while I'm very like positive on like how Ash Graph generates like all these filters and stuff, like, how easy will it be? How time consuming will it be to like say, hey, and this is like one of my earlier comments, like, I don't like the fact that like when I am filtering a like ticket, so if I go into filter ticket filter input, and I say status, and status is an enum. So like, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense. That's like greater than, or equal to. Like those are not enum concepts. Like that's built more around numbers and maybe strings to a lesser extent. So like I could see myself simplifying that. How easy will that be to do? I feel like it's been pretty easy. Like just some of my early, testing of this. So that is something that'll come up, and we'll see how it works out. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's it for today. So like, what this has been is basically like I'm using this like demo project, this like help desk, Elixir API, and then the Svelte version to basically give me a little playground to kind of experiment with Ash and with GraphQL, and then more specifically with Svelte and Svelte's consumption of this GraphQL to kind of help me, verify some thoughts I have for the tech stack I would like to use for my next project. So I don't know. That's it for today. I mean, that was a little bit rambly. If you're interested in Ash, I definitely highly encourage you to check out the website and the documentation. There's also a couple of YouTube videos you can watch on it. If you happen to be at ElixirConf, I believe they're doing like Ash training, which I will not be there, but I do know one person who's going to be doing the training, so I'm curious to hear how that works out for him. But yeah, I guess that's it for today. Probably in another week or so, I will do another one of these and talk a little bit about the Svelte side of things, so the front end, and why I'm interested in Svelte over the live view, and how Svelte's working out so far. But yeah, that's it for today. Ramble Journal. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or feedback, please do let me know. Other than that, I will see you in the next one.